3 nutrition lies that are keeping you fat. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood, and in today's video, I'm going to go over 3 of the most common pieces of advice that aren't necessarily true and might actually be holding you back. Now, if you're someone who's trying to get nutrition advice, it can be confusing and overwhelming out there, seeing so many conflicting and often contradicting pieces of advice. Keep in mind, it's also difficult for fitness coaches and nutrition coaches out there as well, because as much as people love to get absolute statements, there is a lot of context and nuance that goes behind everything. So my goal in this video is to build those 3 things that I was talking about that are often lies and myths that are keeping you fat, but also the context behind it and when those may or may not be good pieces of advice. Number 1. Eating healthy leads to fat loss. Now, obviously in a perfect world, that's exactly what's going to happen. And when you're trying to lose fat, you want to be able to switch to as many nutrient-dense, healthy foods as possible, but it's certainly not a guarantee that you're going to lose fat. Now, the good news is, if you start to switch over to these healthier foods, you're going to feel better and your health is probably going to improve. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to lead to fat loss. A lot of these quote unquote healthier foods can actually be very calorie dense, and even more so than a lot of the junk foods that we consider. So for example, if you're talking about someone who's eating an avocado versus someone who's eating a donut, the avocado is much healthier, much more nutrient dense, but also has higher calories. If you're talking about the person who's drinking really healthy, freshly squeezed fruit juice throughout the day, comparing that person to the Diet Coke fiend that has 0 calories, once again, the calories are way higher in the fruit juice compared to the 0 in Diet Coke. Even if you decide to be really healthy, health conscious, make some good decisions over dinner, a lot of salads are actually higher calories than something like a burger. So a lot of these times you're going in with really good intentions, trying to make healthier choices, really trying to transform your health and your physique. And not only are you not losing fat, but you can actually gain fat, because a lot of these healthier foods, like I mentioned, can be more calorie dense than a lot of the junk food alternatives, which can be super frustrating. And this happens all the time. I can certainly empathize for people who are making these healthier choices and not reaping the benefits. So there's a bit of a good news, bad news here. The good news is it's a relatively easy fix once you understand how energy balance works. And what we recommend is, you don't have to do this for your entire life, although it's not a bad idea, but we recommend tracking your calories at least once in your life. And do it for at least a week, but the longer, the better. Because at the very least, you're going to get a ton of education and calorie awareness by simply tracking your food, realizing which foods are much higher calories than others, and how you can eat more food with lower calories, and also just get so much data on what happens when you do this with regards to your body weight and with regards to your fat. So it's always a good idea to track your calories, to have a really good idea of where your calories, your protein, your macros are at, rather than just winging it. Now, if you're just switching over into a healthier diet and you're doing it intuitively and not tracking and everything's working, that's great. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you're one of the people who has switched over and you're getting really frustrated and you feel like there's something wrong with you or your physique or your metabolism, I'd really suggest tracking meticulously. Give it about a month, the longer the better, and just see the results. Number 2, carbs make you fat. You probably saw this one coming. Carbs have always been a very tumultuous conversation topic in the world of health and fitness, and there's just a lot of back and forth between what carbs are good, carbs are bad, and ultimately it really depends on the person, but carbs in itself are not inherently fattening. In fact, when you consider calories per gram, carbs are actually lower than fat and alcohol and the exact same as protein. So carbs in itself, not fattening. However, there are correlations between body weight and people taking in carbs, but again, it's not the carbs themselves. There's a few issues when it comes to carbs and when it comes to gaining fat. Number 1, a lot of these carbs can be very highly processed. And when a carb is very highly processed, it becomes very easy to overeat. So you can have a lot more than the serving size, which is going to cause those extra calories, which can lead you to come up with the conclusion that carbs, in fact, are fattening. And then the second option, this happens all the time as well with a lot of dinners and a lot of lunches. It's the mixture. So it's a combination of carbs with fat. It's a combination of carbs with more sugar. It's not the carb itself. So if you have carbs with butter, carbs with olive oil, carbs with cream, suddenly you're adding fat, which is way more calorie dense to the carbs, which again are highly processed. So you're overeating, your calories are high, and you're mixing it with other macros that are even more calorie dense. And this is why when people eat high carb diets, they see their calories go through the roof and add the extra body fat. But again, it's the serving size and it's the combination with other things. It's not the carbohydrate themselves, especially when you're talking about more natural carbs, even like brown rice, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potatoes. These carbs are all relatively filling. If you go by the serving sizes, there's not a lot of calories in them at all, and they can provide a lot of health benefits as well. People are typically used to going with the pasta, with the noodles, and the combination with a bunch of other things as well. Not only are carbs not fattening, but they also have health benefits and performance benefits as well. So carbs are going to really help you with your overall workouts. If you're watching a video right now about fat loss, I'm guessing you're probably either exercising now or looking to get into exercise in the future, and carbs are going to be your friend. So if you want to be very strategic about when to have your carbs, ideally before your workout and or after your workout are going to be the best times to use them. So before your workout, it's going to help you with your energy, especially if you're going lower calorie, you're in a calorie deficit, your energy's taking a hit. Those carbs are going to give you a little bit of a boost and going to help you power through that workout. And then after your workout, carbs are really beneficial with regards to insulin sensitivity. So after your workout, your muscles are the most insulin sensitive, which means that's the most likely time for the blood sugar to go into the muscles rather than staying in the bloodstream, getting stored as fat, or going into other locations. So your muscles are very sugar hungry after a workout. And if you're going to use your carbs at that time, it's a very good use of your time and energy. Now, the problem when it comes to carbs is that it's people that typically could benefit most from a higher carb diet that are actually the most scared of. And the people that are the most sedentary who don't need a lot of carbs that go way too high with them. So if you're exercising, if you're healthy, if you're not sedentary, carbs can be your friend. You shouldn't avoid them at all. There are a couple caveats here. So some people just naturally don't do well with carbs. And if that's you, there's nothing wrong with going on a lower to moderate carb diet. No one's here saying you have to go high carb. We're just saying you don't have to go low carb. And then the second option, or the second person that might want to go on a lower carb diet, is anyone who either has diabetes, pre-diabetes, or has diabetes in their family, because carbs are going to be higher in the blood sugar, which is going to make your body have a much more difficult time being able to process that. Again, the strong correlation between diabetes and carbs is pretty commonly noted out there now. Okay, so for the average person, no need to shy away from carbs. They're not going to make you fat. It's just you got to be very careful about what you mix them with, how much of them you're eating, and when you're eating them as well. But if you're sticking to natural sources before and after your workout especially, they're a great addition. And not only are they not going to hurt you, but they'll probably help you. And then number 3, you're doing everything right, you're not getting results, so you must be in starvation mode. So this is a bit of a tricky one because when we're talking about it from a literal point of view, starvation mode doesn't exist, right? If you were to just not eat food for long enough, you would die. And there is not exactly an obesity epidemic in countries that struggle with starvation and enough food, right? So it's not a controversial thing to say, the less you eat, the less you're going to weigh, the less body fat you're going to have. But people typically use starvation mode as another way to say metabolic adaptation, which is a real thing. And this is the concept that as you lose weight, your body tries to resist it. Your body tries to fight back and not want to lose that weight. And it does this in a few different ways. It does this by unconsciously causing you to move less. It does this by increasing your hunger hormones so you feel hungrier all the time. And it also does this by down-regulating your metabolism. So your metabolism slows down as you lose weight, and there's nothing you can really do about this. Now, the more aggressively you lose weight, the more aggressive the metabolic adaptation comes into play. And that's where this argument comes from. This argument is the leaner you get, the more aggressive you are, the bigger of a hit that your metabolism takes, which is true. But typically metabolic adaptation only really hits those to the extent where you're going to reach a plateau, to those that have already achieved quite a bit. So if you have 50, 60, 70 pounds to lose, even 20 or 30 plus, you probably don't have to worry about this yet. And this typically comes from people who are saying they're eating 1,200, 1,400, 1,600 calories. If you're a man eating 1,200 calories, like legitimately, trust me, you're going to lose weight. You're going to lose weight fast. I don't recommend doing that. But if you feel like you've hit a plateau because you're at those calorie ranges, I hate to tell you, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just saying you're not at those calorie ranges. And before you resist and say, trust me, I track my calories, I know where I am. Hey, I get it. but humans are notorious underreporters of calories. Not just the average person, trainers, nutritionists, PhDs, everyone does the same thing. We vastly underreport our calorie intake, even if we're tracking. This is good news because this means that we're probably taking in more calories than we actually realize, which makes it a lot easier to actually fix the problem of hitting a plateau. Just means we need to bring them down again. Not only do we underreport, but food companies also have a 20% discretion of calorie intake when they put it on their food labels. So that means if someone's putting in 100 calories of a food on their food label, it can be 20% higher or lower than that. And guess what? It's probably going to be higher than they report. So what I typically do when I'm tracking my calories is I'll realize not only is there that 20% buffer with the nutrition label, but I'm probably also underreporting. So I'll set my goal for much lower than it should be, just because when I hit that goal, it's actually probably much higher. And you're asking, how can this be if I'm tracking so meticulously? Other than the label, we typically miss out on serving sizes. So even when you are weighing meticulously, you're usually having a little bit higher serving size than you report. Also not accounting for nibbles, for bites, for cooking oils, for condiments, for sauces. All of these things add up. Even if it seems very small, at the end of the day, they add up. And not only do we underreport how many overreport how many calories, underreport how many calories we're taking in, but we overreport how many calories we're burning off. So we say we eat less and move more, but we're actually eating more and moving less. This can be frustrating because you feel like you're doing everything absolutely correct and you're not getting any results, but the solution is usually quite simple. Acknowledge that there's probably going to be a discrepancy between where you are and where you think you are, and then try to kind of bounce back and adjust for that error. So if you're going through a fat loss phase right now and you're struggling to see the results that you want, there's probably a pretty good chance that you're dealing with one of these three things. So just to conclude, there's no need to worry about carbs. Carbs aren't going to make you fat. Just because you're eating healthy doesn't guarantee fat loss. You have to understand energy balance. And regardless of how good you think you're doing, you're probably not in starvation mode. You're just underreporting your calorie intake. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do enjoy videos like this, please do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.